My name is Marlo Ivy, and I'm a fourth-generation farmer from Wayne County, North Carolina. My family started raising hogs about 40 years ago, and we've been in the hog business ever since. My family's been raising hogs for 40 years, and about a year ago, I decided to diversify our family farm and built a turkey farm here in Wayne County. So the farm that you're at today is an all-in, all-out farm. And basically, I get the turkeys when they come in as baby poults, and I raise them till they become super tom meat birds. So the birds that I raise in these barns would be, birds that are sold for deli meat. My dad and uncle started raising hogs in the 1970s, and they specialize in hog genetics. So we realized during the time and the expansion that was happening in North Carolina, when the tobacco industry was kind of going out of business or, losing business, farmers had to diversify. So my dad graduated from the University of Chapel Hill and he moved back home and decided to go in the hog business. Well, we specialize in purebred hog genetics that we four-way crossed and sold to the Japanese market. So my family's been in purebred hog business and hog genetics for 40 years until I transitioned some of our family land and built a poultry farm.
My name is Bob Ivy. I'm a hog producer from eastern North Carolina, and I went to school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, but learned the hog business from NC State. And I came back to the family farm, which was mainly a tobacco farm, in the late 70s, and participated in growing hogs as a means of being able to come back to the family farm. Tobacco was king when I was growing up, and poultry too for that matter. And the swine industry has allowed me an opportunity to come back and raise my family and be a farmer, which I'm very grateful of. NC State had a program back then, and the government had programs to bring young people back to the family farm. And I think that was which was very good, because being able to make a living in eastern North Carolina is really nothing here. Farms are small, and livestock, both poultry and swine, has really been instrumental in allowing young people, and now me, an older person, to come back to the farm and have a generational operation to pass on to my daughter. I think the biggest challenges for farmers is we have to adapt, and I've certainly seen a lot of changes. My farms were started in the 70s, and back then hogs were grown on the ground, and from that they were moved inside because the farms got bigger and bigger, and we need to have more environmental farms to keep pollution down. And so I was really part of a generation that moved the livestock industry, the swine industry, from being outside to being inside, and seeing a lot of regulation and innovation occur in the swine industry that has allowed North Carolina to really be a leader to this day, as far as the things that we do, both on the farm, raising hogs, whether it's vaccination or environmentally controlled buildings, or reducing our carbon footprint, which we've been able to do with the lagoon system, protected environment, and really in recent years our carbon footprint has been reduced by as much as 30%. So I guess the key to being a farmer is you got to be tough, you got to be able to adapt, and you got to be keen on using technology that's innovative, up to date, to be successful, because things don't stand still in this world. We have to continue to improve our systems, whether it's a computer or a farm. We've always got to start, we always have to keep improving.
So as a generational millennial female farmer, my generation really sits on the shoulders of the past generation. The way that we got here is very important, and there's a lot of history that's been passed down and a lot of environmental stewardship that's been passed down from past generations like my dad. But I would say what is important to my generation is the future. You know, we're not farming for the past. I'm farming for the present. I'm farming to continue this legacy of agriculture and the 2% of the populations that's feeding the rest of the 99%. I'm farming and wanting to, you know, use the best technology and use the best science to have a better farm for my kids. You know, I want them to have the same passions and drive to become better. But we, you know, farmers like me really sit on the past histories of what generations like my dad went through to get here. And, you know, farmers are the first environmentalists. You know, I want to pass this farm down just like my father has. And I think that story has been lost from generation to generation because millennial farmers like me are just opening the doors to what the stories that we can tell on social media. You know, the average farmer today is 65 to 70 years old, and you know, there was no social media back then. There wasn't stories that can be told for agriculture and what we're doing out here on a day-to-day basis. So that's really important to me, is to advocate for this industry and help tell that story, and you know, take a historian like my dad in agriculture and build off that to show people how environmentally committed we are as farmers and what we're doing out here, and passing that on to the next generation. You know, like I said before, I'm farming for the future.
As we know, it's September, and September the 16th is the 25th anniversary of Hurricane Floyd, one of the most massive storms that ever hit eastern North Carolina. The storm came after another hurricane that came up through the Gulf called Hurricane Daniel, which occurred 10 days before Floyd. And it really changed everybody in eastern North Carolina. Daniel dumped a lot of water inland, which raised our rivers and streams by around 8 to 10 inches. And then 10 days later, Floyd came. It was 580 miles in diameter, and it dumped a lot of rain, both on the coast and inland, which added to the waters that Daniel dumped, and it created massive flooding everywhere. Homes flooded. I woke up, my home was flooding. Municipalities all failed. Dams ruptured. People's homes got flooded. We had the National Guard not only moving livestock, but helping with livestock, but moving people out of their homes because the waters were getting so high. A lot of towns like Princetown and others were impacted, and a lot of local communities were destroyed and had to be moved. And the lessons of Floyd are very interesting because there were 30 farms that were built to little or no standards, and they were built in areas that were low. And those 30 farms flooded, and livestock buildings were flooded to the point that they were shut down in a government program. Over 30 farms were shut down. Today, Marlow is always preparing for a hurricane. We've had many hurricanes like Matthew and Dorian and those, and the farmer, really not only the farmer, but everybody in eastern North Carolina starts preparing for hurricanes really in January, getting ready for hurricane season, which, as you know, is usually from July to November, around the 1st of November. And so hurricanes are important to be ready for, and not only on the hog farm, but on the poultry farm, and also for row crops and other things that go on in ag. So, Marla, you may want to talk about what you do pumping your farm and those type of things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, this kind of goes back to what I talk about a lot, which is, you know, we've really learned a lot from past experiences in the hog industry. We've become better farmers. We're one of the most highly, if not the highest regulated industry in our country is North Carolina pig farming. So I think that's very important. There's also a point where you can be regulated out of business. And I think, you know, North Carolina farmers in general have really taken the heat from a lot of narratives impacting our environmental footprint, and when we are really the leaders of that industry. That story is never seldom told. You know, during hurricane season, they'll show the same pictures from 25 years ago of pigs that are standing on top of barns, and those instances and these narratives have really stolen our voice as farmers. So I think it's really important to, you know, be an advocate for agriculture in the sense of how important it is as we are as an industry from these regulations. And honestly, being regulated is not a bad thing. It makes me a better farmer. But there is a point where you are regulated out of business as a farmer. So there's a fine line that you have to walk there. But I think North Carolina hog farmers in general set a standard for environmental stewardship. I think we're leaders. I think we're innovators. I think our science and technology has proven that time and time again. And I think our lagoon system has proven that time and time again. So I think those are stories that unfortunately are never getting told because we're too busy farming. But I think it's, again, important as leaders in this industry to stand up and be a voice for agriculture.
As we were talking about earlier, I've seen hogs go from being on the ground to and progressing into environmentally controlled buildings. Farms have gotten larger in eastern North Carolina so they can be more efficient, and so that we can keep up with the changing economic pressures that we face in eastern North Carolina. One of the big things that was important to me is that my father, from a very young age, taught me how to drive a tractor, how to be safe, how to shoot a gun, all the things that are necessary to farm. And it's very important that we teach our children these things. That's all the other changes that we've seen in farming. One of the things that I'm really proud of is all the women that are now in farming. I'm on the North Carolina Pork Producers Association, and I'm also on the National Pork Producers Council. And there are many, many women now that are in the livestock industry, both poultry and hogs. And I'm really proud of the fact that my daughter has come back to the farm and is really working to be in the leadership programs as a woman. So one of the big changes in our industry has been the fact that a lot of women now are becoming farmers in all phases and leadership positions in our industry. Marlo being one of those. Bath, go eat lunch and then do it.
Yeah, they're probably training today.
Okay, so besides coming back to the farm and all the changes we've seen in our farms, I'm really proud of the fact that there are a lot of women in farming now, and being in anything from working on the farm to leadership in some of our industries, such as the North Carolina Pork Producers Council and the National Pork Producers Council. We have a lot of women now that are not only participating on the farm, but are presidents and past presidents of our organization. And I'm really proud of seeing this change, and I think it's really added a lot to our industry. And Marla, you may want to talk about the things that you've done that I wasn't involved in,
like building this turkey farm?
Yeah, like building this turkey farm.
You know, I get asked this question a lot, you know, what does it mean to be a woman in ag? And honestly, you know, I never think about it. Like, I never think that I can not do the same job as a man on this farm. You know, I get asked this question a lot, you know, what does it mean to be a woman in ag? And honestly, I never think about it. And I don't mean that from the fact that there isn't a difference between men and women. I just mean that I look as millennial farmers as having the same struggles no matter what their gender is. I know that male farmers are struggling with the same issues that female farmers are struggling with. I mean, and you know, only 27% of the farms in America are owned and operated by women. That's a small number. I think, you know, a lot of women are coming back and taking over the farms because they can contribute just as much as a man can. I don't really see a lot of different issues that I don't deal with that a man technically deals with. I'm very thankful to have a father that I did growing up who supported me coming back to the farm and taking it over, even though I was his daughter and not his son. I think I was taught at an early age to act like a lady but work like a man. So I think that's a testimony to women who come back and come back to the farm, is that we can do the jobs and are just as qualified as men are. And the fact of the matter is, we see a lot more women who advocate for agriculture because women are better communicators. So there's a lot of opportunities for women in agriculture, and not just coming back. I was lucky enough to be able to come back and take over the farm, and I had this opportunity to diverse our farm and build this farm all by myself, which was a great opportunity. But there's a lot of opportunity for women in agriculture that isn't just farming. So I think women are very important. I think they have a lot of leadership roles now, and I think that they're doing a great job communicating how important women in agriculture are, a man in ag. I think that we, no matter what gender or race you are, we all have the same struggles in agriculture. Yeah, and that's to have a fair chance to, we don't want subsidies. We don't want, I don't want a subsidy just because this farm is women owned and operated. I just want a chance to compete. I want fair prices. And I think most farmers would say the same. So this is my hog farm. I purchased this farm from my dad about 3 years ago. It was an independent farm. It was built in 1996. And my dad did his genetics program out of this farm. And about 3 years ago, I bought this farm from my dad and uncle when they retired, and I put it under contract with Smithfield. So I'm now a contract grower for Smithfield. This is a wean to finish farm, so I get the baby pigs when they come in from the sow farms, and I grow them out to market. So the average weight that I'm looking for these hogs to go out to market to be harvested would be about 280 pounds. Each house holds about 725, 30 hogs. There have been a couple of different challenges that I've had since purchasing this farm. Number one would be the cost that I had to do to transition it from a standard 3 production system to a 2 production system, which is how Smithfield raises their hogs now, which is a 2 production system specifically to this farm. So the cost of transitioning the farm was pretty fair, and the cost of goods have just gone up so much that it costs a lot to do those kind of renovations. It costs a lot to do those renovations now. Another thing that happened that has never happened on our farms in 40 years is that I had a fire. So I had an electrical fire in house 3, and luckily for me, the volunteer fire departments got here in time, and I only lost about 4 hogs per that barn. So I was really, really lucky. That was obviously the first time where I was in a leadership position and had to make some serious calls, so that was quite a learning experience. Again, we were able to put that fire out, and we really didn't have any loss, and Hogslat was able to build my barn back pretty quickly. But during that time, there's been a lot of transition on this farm, and there's been a lot of lessons that I've learned on this farm about some leadership roles and decisions that are getting made in the management style, which is a little bit different, being a contract grower than it is being an independent. So I've learned a lot since purchasing this farm 3 years ago, and I'm glad that I have a really good team behind me, and I have my dad that I still rely on for advice. So as much as I like to say that it's my farm, I still lean on my farm managers and my help out here every day to help me make the right decisions. I think one of the biggest challenges that when I'm talking to a consumer or somebody in the general public that's not necessarily born and raised on a farm, they always say, farmers are millionaires, farmers are millionaires, but nobody ever talks about the debt side of that ledger. It's really important to understand that when you're purchasing something, you got to pay for it, and that takes years to pay back, and interest rates are really high right now. So, I always, when people bring up the topic of that and they try to say that farmers are millionaires, I always like to bring that to light, because that's a really important issue that especially a millennial farmer who's looking to come back and purchase these farms has to deal with when we're going to get a loan from the bank. We have to worry about construction costs, or we have to worry about interest loans. Those are really important issues that are facing millennial farmers these days trying to get into this business. And another thing that we have to look at is inheritance tax. You know, that's a big thing that a millennial farmer like me has to look at for the future when, you know, taking over the family farm. I mean, we're talking about a lot of debt, we're talking about a lot of interest rates, and we're talking about being sustainable enough to pay back that debt and sustainable enough to worry about, you know, somebody in the family passing away and having to pay an inheritance tax. I mean, those are really big issues facing farmers today, and a lot of things that we don't, you know, that people forget about when it comes to agriculture, especially generational farming. A lot of people have misconception about our manure management plan and how our manure is stored on our farms. And I think that it's a really important issue and something that people are very uneducated about. So the farms are built with hog slats, and the hogs secrete the manure into the slats, and it's recycled into this lagoon system. And I think the most important thing that people need to realize is that it's a recycle system. So everything from what the hog secretes is applied back onto our fields. We do that. We don't apply every single day. We apply after it's tested and it's regulated, and we manage our lagoon system as it should be applied to the nutrients of the crops. And Dad can talk a lot about the science behind it, because he was part of the generation that built and designed these lagoons.
So as you can see, as Marlo said earlier, she's got 8 barns that hold 720 animals. And this system was designed by NC State University Ag Engineering Group. And Soil and Water worked with the farmer to get the proper size of the lagoon built for the number of animals that are on the farm. And so the lagoon is built, it's clay lined, and as you can see, there's a stake in it. You see those pegs down there that tell you how many, you count the pegs so you can know how much freeboard you have in the lagoon. We just came through a big storm event where we had 4 to 6 inches of rain. As you can see, Marlo was very well prepared. Her lagoon shows a lot of stakes, which means that she's been applying her nutrients to her crop, which in this case was coastal, and has it in a situation where it can handle the rain. The top peg there, from there to the top of the stake that you see there, that is about 25 to 28 inches, and that's in case there is a hurricane event. The lagoons are designed clay lined so they won't leak. They have a storage area for the sludge that builds up from the manure that's broken down in a treatment level of the lagoon. And what this does is it breaks the nutrients down, sludge is formed, and then it has a storage area which allows her to pump as she can based on the weather conditions and the crop that's being grown. And so all this is regulated. We have someone from Soil and Water. This lagoon, I think, has just gone through an inspection. They come and inspect the records. They want to know that what the nutrients are in the lagoon. They want to see the fields that it was applied on and how much has been applied, and it's applied at a rate for the crops that's being grown. As you can see, it's working quite well. I mean, we're standing right beside it. It has a very mild odor. I don't see any flies and all the other things, misconceptions that we hear from people that don't understand the process or the science behind it. And these systems have worked great in eastern North Carolina because they're passive. They don't rely on electricity or motors or those type of things. So like a municipality, when it rains a whole lot, if the power goes out and they have some type of mechanical process that's needed to allow it to function, that goes down, you know, if there's an emergency caused by a storm event. And this system is all built above the flood level, so they won't flood, and they really have a good history in my opinion, of success. And remember, farmers are held to a no discharge standard. Municipalities, they have a permit so they can discharge in a river or stream. Farmers cannot have runoff. We either have a crop, we have riparian buffers, and we manage these systems so that we apply it in such a way that it's taken up and utilized by the crop.
And I think another thing that people who have an agenda against animal agriculture use is waste, hazardous waste. That's not what this is. This is actually a nutrient that we apply back into the soil. So it's not waste at all. It's a recycle system that we use, and it's a fertilizer.
Design that goes in it, and there's a lot of monitoring to be sure that it works properly.